All right, Krug Show. Busy Friday on the Krug Show, and we get it rolling. The Pig and a Pickle Krug Show, brought to you by Pig and a Pickle. Check them out. 2 locations. They're open 7 days a week in Corte Madera, and they're open Wednesday through Sunday in Emeryville, in the Emeryville Public Marketplace. If you love barbecue, you are going to love Pig and a Pickle. Get the brisket chili. Say hi to Damon and Mary, and tell them that you were sent directly by Larry Krueger and the Krug Show. Backed by popular demand, one of our very favorites, the great Jack Hammer, who does a phenomenal job covering the 49ers and has for a number of years. And he's with us to talk a little bit about the offseason with the combine rolling in Indy and free agency just around the corner, and a lot of rumors circulating on the Niners as far as the draft, as far as free agency. The quarterback thing is just never a dull moment there. The great Jack Hammer is in the house. Jack, good to see you, man. How are you?
I'm great. It's great to talk to you, Larry. It's been a little bit, so I'm looking forward to. I think it was last time we talked. It was right towards the end of the season, so I'm looking forward to this.
There you go. Spencer says, smash that like, everyone. Yeah, hit like and subscribe. If you hit like, more people find the stream. If you hit subscribe, you'll be alerted when we go live. And then, of course, you can be a special channel member for $4.99 a month if you want as well. And we give you special content for those people. All right, let's get right into one of the main reasons I wanted to have you on, or one of the main topics I wanted to hit. And we're going to hit a bunch here. But there's been some kind of rumblings in the last 24 hours that Emmanuel Mosley will be coming back to the 49ers in 2023. So let's start right there. Nick Bosa, in his first podcast appearance, spoke about a number of things. Steve Wilkes, why the 49ers don't need to change a thing on defense. And then he talked a little bit about Emmanuel Mosley, and he told Richard Sherman that Mosley's coming back to the Niners in 2023. If this is indeed a fact, this is a big story. Mosley was scheduled to be an unrestricted free agent. He tore his ACL in week 5, which was first week of October. And I thought he was playing the best football of his career when he went out. I really feel like the 49ers, that Mosley's injury was definitely made them lesser of a defense going forward. And I think he's a key cog. What was your takeaway from the Dick Sherman, Nick Bosa conversation that resulted in that news?
If the 49ers can get Emmanuel Mosley back, that's, like you said, that's a huge get for them, because he was. I think you could argue that he was playing better than Charvarius Ward, on the opposite side. When you look at Emmanuel Mosley's career, from the moment he stepped into the starting lineup in 2019, he's always been a guy who plays at a very high level. He was an under the radar guy. He was an undrafted free agent, but once he stepped in, he plays at a very high level. The only question you have there is his durability. But as far as the player himself, Emmanuel Mosley would be a great get for the 49ers if they can bring him back.
And here's the exact quote from Bosa. He was talking about next year. He says, we got dogs on every level of our defense, especially this year. I think Fred and Dre have taken another step, which is kind of scary. And then we got Charvarius back there. Emmanuel Mosley will be back, so it's only up from here. So as I said, Mosley's scheduled to be an unrestricted free agent. He did explain, or he did have the ACL injury, which could knock his value a little bit. John Lynch explained the Mosley injury and was optimistic about his recovery. He said ACLs probably aren't what they used to be. I think where you get concerned is when there's a bunch of other damage. He had a pretty clean ACL. We like Mose, who he is as a person, who he is as a player. He fits us well. That's a position where you always need depth. If he can provide that, I think it's a good thing for us. That's far from done, so that's not done, not close to be done, but we'll work toward that, though. So it sounds like he almost misspoke. Like he said, hey, that's done. Oh, wait, no. That's not done. It sounds like both sides want to have a reunion here of sorts. That, to me, would be great news for the Niners, because I think this is a really good player. I don't even care coming off the ACL. I really I think Mosley could be, a key cog for them if they try to win the Super Bowl this year, and they will.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think, I understand that some other teams might be put off a little bit by the injury bug that he's dealt with. But for the 49ers and the depth that they have and that what they were able to show last year when he went out, all those guys are coming back. They have the depth to bring him in and let him do the best he can. And if he can play, if he gives them 10 games, great, because you have guys that can come off the bench that can step right in. If he gives you a full 17, that's even better. So they're in a unique spot here where they can take a chance on a guy like Emmanuel Mosley that maybe some other teams can't. And when I say chance, I'm just speaking only because of the injury issues that he's had in the past, because the player on the field is one of the better players at the position in the league.
It's interesting too. The 49ers found Emmanuel Mosley as an undrafted free agent. And it's kind of amazing that you could have his size, his athleticism, play in the SEC, be a major contributor for his team at Tennessee, and go undrafted. But that was the situation. And, some guys have like an appreciation forever for the team that kind of discovered them as an undrafted player. Heck, talking to Aziz Al-Shair, I got a weird vibe towards the end of the year that even though it really looks like Aziz is gone, and he probably is, there's a lot of loyalty there to the Niners. There's a lot of loyalty to the fact that the 49ers found him, that, so, I mean, maybe Mosley has that same loyalty. Is it possible because of the injury, they could get Mosley back on a bargain deal?
I think so. I think that's kind of where he comes back, is it's going to be a little bit lower level deal. And again, I point to the injuries as a reason why they did this a couple of years. They did this with Jason Verrett originally, right? They brought him in back in 2020 when nobody else would sign him. They were able to bring him back, after a solid 2020 season because the market wasn't there. So, and they've continued. They kind of continued with Verrett, and Mosley is a guy who's been more durable. But he's kind of in that same. I can see the contract negotiations being very similar in that he just doesn't get the market that he should because of the injury history that's there. But as a player, he should be paid top dollar. It's an unfortunate situation for him. What happened in Carolina?
I'll say this. I really like, he came out of college. He must have been like 20, 21 years old. He's only 26. This was his 5th season in the league. So you're talking about still a relatively young player, 26 going on 27. That's still very much in the prime of his career. When you're a guy that watches the all 22, at least from time to time, what do you think of Mosley as far as strengths and weaknesses? Do you like him, as a man corner? Do you like him as a zone? The Niners play a lot of zone. The thinking, Jack, has always been, hey, if you match up, you play man. If you don't match up, you play zone. That's kind of an old school thinking. Now it's been replaced with, hey, if give all these veteran quarterbacks a number of different looks over the course of a drive, a quarter, a half, a game, just so they don't ever really settle into any kind of comfort zone. But what do you view as Mosley's strengths as a player?
I would say that he's a little bit stronger as a man cover corner than in the zone schemes. It just seems like he works better when he has a feel for where the receiver is instead of playing in space. And that fits where the 49ers, I think, wanted to go with this defense. I think they want to have a defense that can play more man than what they've done in the past. And we saw that a little bit this year or this past season in 2022. And I think that's really where he excels. He has that ability to really drive on the ball, and he's always there when the ball gets there. And I think that's where he kind of separates himself from the pack.
Okay, so there's a saying that you can never have enough corners. An old buddy of mine who was a great defensive coach and no longer with us, great guy, the great Bill Urbanek, used to say to me, Larry, the key to pass coverage. And I'd be like, yeah? He'd be like, is fucking pass coverage. And I'm like, Coach, what do you mean? And he's like, in other words, there is no secret to pass coverage. You need players. And when you run out of corners, you're out, and there's no replacing them midstream. You're not going to find a good corner walking around on the street in week 7. The Niners experienced this a few years ago when they tried to sign Brian Allen, who was big and athletic and talented, on a Wednesday and ask him to play against the Miami Dolphins on Sunday. And Fitzmagic just was like, came out of every huddle going, where's Brian Allen? Oh, he's right there. And he like point over to him and then he'd go at him. It was it was unbelievable to watch. It was stunning, really. That all being said, how many corners do you need in camp to feel good about your depth there? I would say you need 7 because you're going to need 5 on your roster. There's a lot more 3 and 4 wides than ever before. So that third and fourth corner, which may have just been a special team guy in the past and somebody who maybe you could hide if he didn't have great skills in coverage and great ability to mirror. Now you can't hide that guy. Your fourth corner's got to play. Your fifth corner's got to play. Heck, you could say the third corner might be more valuable than your third linebacker, the way teams play defense today. So if Mosley's back, there's one. Charvarius Ward is obviously back. He had a terrific year. That's 2. Diamador Lenore is 3. Bust out year for Lenore. Sammy Womack's 4. So they've got 4 there. Now the question is, do they have 5? Or do you look at Ambry Thomas as a guy who may get cut or traded? What is your view of the world from Ambry Thomas? I mean, he's obviously got skill, he's obviously got talent and athleticism, but he's also obviously regressed from where he was 2 years ago. He was a total non-factor this year. Where is Ambry Thomas coming back? Are they going to trade him? Is he just in camp and maybe likely to get cut? How do you see Thomas's future?
Well, if they bring back Moseley, and you have that, and now what you have is Thomas becomes the guy that you're looking to replace. You're looking to find somebody that can step in during camp that can beat him. So that's where you either go out and you're able to get somebody in free agency on a cheaper deal in free agency, or through the draft. And there's a few different players in the draft that meet the 49ers needs at that spot who they might be able to bring in. So I think they're 5 deep, but they need to see if they can find somebody that's going to be better than that 5th guy.
Yeah. Ron Holder throws in a super chat. He says, Mosley only played 1 full season in 2019, and a lot of that was on special teams. He's always hurt. Let him go and get someone new. What would you say to Ron Holder? I mean, there's a value to the player that comes through the TV, and then there's sometimes a different value of how that player is viewed in the room by the other players. And sometimes there's a third value. It's like how the fans view him, how the players and his teammates view him, and then how the coaching staff and the front office view him. How do you view Mosley, and what do you think to that comment from the guy who's like, hey, you know what, the guy's glass, kick him to the curb?
I get where he's coming from, but that's not something that I would worry about, considering I think that the locker room really likes Emmanuel Mosley. I think the coaching staff and the front office really likes Emmanuel Mosley. If they can get Emmanuel Mosley on this roster, they're going to go out and they're going to make it happen if they can do it at a number that matches their cap space. Again, it's about getting if you have depth at the position that can step in and be a starter for the player. If he's only going to be able to play 10 games or whatever it is, then you're insulated with that. And I think the 49ers really want to go in that direction. And I think if they can get Emmanuel Mosley on a good deal, you bring him back. This isn't somebody that you want to let walk out the building if you can hold on to him.
No, I think, he's so respected by the players. What I love about him too, this guy is just throws his body around with reckless abandon, man. Now I understand what Ron's talking about as far as injuries, but that's what happens when you come flying up to make a tackle against the run. I love the way he plays. Now, he may out-hit his body, but he is a very strong player in run support, and he'll just hurl himself into ball carriers, receivers. To me, I love his play speed, and I love his play intensity, and it may lead to some injuries. So you may need to be fortified depth-wise, but, man, I'll take a guy who plays with his hair on fire like this guy, like Jimmy Ward, every day over guys who are kind of soft-footing it out there and just, I don't want to say anybody plays not to get hurt, but, who just don't quite play for keeps like those two guys do.
Yeah, the ability to play with a reckless abandon is kind of what you're talking about. They're just going out there and making plays. I think that's exactly what this defense is all about, and that's what they're looking for, those types of guys. So that's another really good reason why Emmanuel Mosley fits their need on defense.
Andrew on the chat says, love Larry's coach's voice and agree with the need for more corners. Ambry Thomas stinks. tried to warn you, go blue. Andrew, let me tell you, you're fucking lazy, Larry. You're fucking lazy. And that was like a good day too. It'd be like, literally, I ran into a couple guys who were on the Sacramento Gold Miners, the great David Diaz-Infante. Remember David Diaz-Infante? He played with the Niners for a while, played for Denver. He was on our Gold Miner team, and I ran into him at a Super Bowl when the Super Bowl was here a few years ago, and he comes up from behind me, and he uses the urbanic voice, and he's like, "It's fucking Larry. What's going on, fucking Larry?" And we embraced. I was like, "Oh man, I'm gonna be fucking Larry for eternity because of Bill Urbanic." Free agency wise, is there a free agent corner? Now, I'm going to throw you some of is there somebody outside of Mosley that you think that I haven't seen the Niners. I guess I saw them connected to Cameron Sutton, who played out of Pittsburgh this year, who, is a 28-year-old corner, made 4.5 million, just basically the same as Mosley this last year. He's interesting. The top corners are Marcus Peters, Bradley Roby, James Bradbury. I kind of like the younger guys down the list. I'll give you an example. Rock Ya-Sin, who played for the Raiders. He's only 26. Sean Murphy Bunting, who I guess got rid of Murphy, is now Sean Bunting for Tampa. He's only 25. I kind of like him. Those are probably the two corners that I would have interest in. It's not a star-studded group. It also includes Jason Verrett. I can't imagine Verrett's coming back. But is there a free agent corner? Rashad Fenton's not bad, who was in Kansas City and he went to Atlanta. I liked him at South Carolina. But do you think the Niners go the free agent market for a corner if they bring back Mosley in addition to Mosley, or do you think that's more of a draft need? What's your guess there? It's like it's all guesswork, but what do you think?
Sure. No, but I think they need to build up the roster, right? So they're going to have more than just what we've talked about on the roster as they go into camp. So if they can find a guy on the cheaper side, like a Rock Ya-Sin from the Raiders that you mentioned, that would be a solid move. Murphy, you mentioned. Trey Flowers is another one. Maybe even Isaiah Oliver out of Atlanta, still on the younger side. He's right around that
Colorado,
same age as. Yeah, he's right around. I think Oliver was played opposite of the guy that was with the Flyers in 2019, who's now a Pittsburgh Steeler, who I'm blanking on his name right now. It started for him in the Super Bowl, early on in the Super Bowl season. But so Oliver would be a good one as well if you could bring him in. So there's a bunch of them. Greedy Williams down there. I know, not sure exactly where he is right now, but I remember he was a highly drafted player, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So there's some
interesting guys. Do you think is there a profile, Jack? I mean, it seems like if you look at Mosley, if you look at Charvarius, it seems like they want some bigger guys, but then you look at Sammy Womack, and I thought Womack was really effective this year. I don't want to say he's tiny, but he's definitely smaller than those guys. What do you think are they looking for a big corner? What do you think? Does Wilkes coming in change that at all? I mean, Wilkes had J.C. Horn in Carolina. My God, he would be almost the prototype of what they're looking for.
Well, if you could find a guy 5'11" or bigger, I think that's kind of what they're looking for. It's really for them. It's about recovery. I think when you watch them, the guys that they've brought in, they're very good in man coverage, that ability to play there and drive on the ball. I think you're seeing that quite a bit throughout their picks. I would say, from a body standpoint, 5'11" and bigger. When I was putting together my list of players to watch at the combine, that's kind of the direction that I went, was a little bit bigger, but not necessarily. It's at 5'11", 6'3". That's kind of your prototype range for a corner, and I think that's kind of where they typically will look.
The DBs are on the field today in Indy working out, and we'll find out exactly how they all worked out. Is there a corner in the upcoming draft, that you're looking at? One of the guys that I saw that they worked out, who I really like, is Darius Rush from South Carolina, who's a redshirt senior. He's a big corner. He's 6'2". He's 200 pounds. Terrific athlete. And then Mekhi Blackman is another guy from USC I saw they met with. I also kind of like Julius Brents from K-State, who's a huge corner, 6'4", 202 pounds. And then I'll tell you the other guy that I just think is phenomenal is you don't see a lot of white corners, but Riley Moss out of Iowa, 6'1", 195. I don't know if he's a corner in the NFL. He might be more of a free safety, but he was freaking awesome for Iowa, and they supposedly met with him this week.
Yeah, you start to look through these names, like for example, Rush, right at South Carolina. That's a spot that the 49ers have found success in the past. So
Yeah.
I would, they're scouting that area really well. So Rush, and he's a 6'2", 200 pounds. He makes sense for them. Same thing, I'm not exactly sure how you say his name. I'm not sure if it's Kelly or Kaylee Ringo from Georgia. He kind of fits that mold as well. He's only going to be 21, and
great
he
athlete.
has. Yeah, and he's another guy that's 6'2", really good athlete. Just depends on how early they want to go there. The player that you mentioned out of USC, I think he kind of fits that same mold in terms of a spot where the 49ers have found a lot of success. Yeah, I know they Hufanga from there, Drake Jackson in the last 2 years. So those are all good names. A couple of other ones to look at would be Clark Phillips III.
Yes, from Utah.
Yeah, DJ Turner and Starling Thomas V, Thomas out of UAB. A little bit on the shorter side, 6 foot 195, but it just depends on how soon the 49ers are going to pull the trigger on trying to get, if they're going to go in that direction through the draft.
Yeah, and don't forget Caillou Blue Kelly, who played at Stanford. I thought he looked really good in the Senior Bowl as well, and John Lynch knows him from Stanford. The Darius Rush name is really interesting. I love the everything about him. I did a whole breakdown on him earlier this year. He, this is a guy who's graduated in May with a degree from South Carolina in like sport and entertainment management, and was like a 2-time SEC academic honor roll. He was a 5-year player. This guy came to South Carolina as a wide receiver and then flipped over to defensive back. And then you can see when you watch him, you can see those ball skills. You know what I mean? It's like this guy runs routes like he's a receiver because he was a receiver, and he's got ball skills like a receiver because he was a receiver. And, sometimes guys like that, can wind up being really, really good corners. There wasn't Richard Sherman, who was, obviously became a borderline Hall of Fame corner. I think he started at Stanford at wide receiver. I don't remember.
Yeah,
I don't
he
know
did.
if
He started off as
his beginnings, but I thought he was a receiver.
Yeah.
Maybe I could be wrong on that one.
You're 100% right. He started off as a wide receiver, and then when Harbaugh and Fangio got there, they moved him over to the defensive side, and that it all took off from there for him. So, you look at the other side of the ball sometimes, and those guys that have been good at one spot and they switch over, it works for them, and wouldn't surprise me to see that happen again.
We're talking to the great Jack Hammer, who's with us on the Krueger Show on this Friday. You had a tweet that really, I thought really resonated with me, and now I had it right here, and now I lost it. It was basically you were talking about the quarterbacks. Here it is. The 49ers had enough belief in Trey Lance to make him QB1 for 2022. They were ready to go through the ups and downs, which typically comes with a young quarterback. What changed? I thought that was very well worded because you're absolutely right on all fronts. They were ready last year to hand him the keys to the car and basically say, you're the guy. And he was the number one guy in camp. And then he, they wind up bringing Jimmy back. He winds up getting hurt. Trey winds up getting hurt, running in between the tackles. I didn't love the usage, to be honest. And then, the rest is history. Jimmy comes on, he gets hurt in the Miami game. On came Purdy. Purdy really played, I thought, better than what I'd seen from Trey or from Jimmy. And the Niners really didn't lose from that point on until they knocked out Purdy, and they had to go to Josh Johnson, and eventually, it all ended, as we know, in Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. What do you think happened? Do you think the 49ers have changed their opinion on Trey Lance? Do you have a sense of that, or are we just judging from quotes and things from afar? I mean, crystallize it as you see it.
The sense that I get is that they still believe in Trey Lance. They still think that Trey Lance is the guy that they were looking for, the guy that they made the move up to get. And I think they still believe in him. If Now, what the whole thing with Trey Lance is he needs to get on the field. He needs to stay on the field, and he needs those reps. And we're going to see what he becomes. I think part of what we're seeing here is you hit on it though. Brock Purdy stepped in against the Dolphins when Jimmy Garoppolo went down, and let's just be completely honest, he lit it up. There was no drop off. The offense actually accelerated once he took over, and that's what everybody expected from Trey Lance from day one. From the day they made the trade, they were expecting that type of a performance, that he was going to be able to come in, he was going to be able to be better than Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, maybe not light years better, but he was going to be at that level, close to it, maybe a little bit better, and that just didn't happen. And I really think that the 49ers, though, they still believe in Trey Lance, and now whether or not that he's going to be the guy long term, I think there's a belief that he can be a player and help them out.
It's what do you make of what Lynch said at the combine about the quarterbacks, specifically Lance? Because maybe I'm twisting that around. Maybe I'm reading stuff into that isn't there, but it sounded to me like John was kind of saying the kinds of things that you would say if you intended to trade the player. And when I say that, I just mean the fact that, he said he's got to play, and that's the biggest challenge. We got a team that's ready to go. Why is that a challenge? I don't understand. Why is that a challenge? Either it's a challenge because they don't believe in Trey, or it's a challenge because they don't feel like he's ready, or otherwise it shouldn't be a challenge. He's ready to play right now. You need him to play right now.
It's interesting because there's a couple of different ways that you can go with this. One of those is the challenge is Trey Lance staying healthy. He hasn't been able to stay healthy, and that's why you're in the position that you are right now to begin with, is that he got injured in 2021. That slowed down his development a little bit in the first half of the year. Then you expect him to be the guy he lasts 5 quarters in 2022. Those expected up and downs, that expected development didn't happen. So now you're going into year 3 with Lance, and you're still not sure where he is. The other part of that I did find interesting was because there was a short one-liner in there where he said, we need to see how we can get him those reps. Well, if he's the guy that you're expecting to be your starting quarterback, that's how your reps are going to come in, right? If that's the guy that you're expecting to be your guy in 2023, where those reps are going to come from. So we'll see what happens with Brock Purdy, but it seems like from where I'm sitting, the writing is on the wall that the 49ers are kind of leaning towards Brock Purdy as being quarterback 1 if he's healthy.
I get that sense as well. Do you think they fear a split locker room, or the divisive nature of having 2 quarterbacks where there's not a clear delineation? I mean, in my mind, it was clear that Brock outplayed Jimmy and what I saw of Trey. But let's just say with the elbow, there's some regression. And let's say Trey, there's some improvement. There should be. And they're very comparable prospects. I kind of look at that as a positive, in that, hey, they're going to have a whale of a competition, and the Niners are going to win because they're going to push each other to make each other better. But do you think deep down they fear the circus of, 2 quarterbacks that are both young, that neither necessarily is worlds better than the other, and they're very similar, and that you might have 20% of the locker room saying, hey, man, we're 5-0 with Trey to start the year. And then the other half saying, yeah, but we scored 35 last year a game with Brock, and we're scoring 25 a game now with Trey. And do you think they fear that kind of split room and the media circus that could follow?
As far as saying it's fear, I don't know. I think that might be a bit of an overstatement. I don't know if they fear it. My thought is that Kyle Shanahan wants there to be clear delineation between who 1 is and 2 is and 3 is. He doesn't want to necessarily have it be a quarterback controversy. I think that's why throughout 2021 in the preseason, he never named Jimmy Garoppolo his starting quarterback. The questions came up on a daily basis: is it Jimmy or is it Trey? How's this working out? And he routinely said, I don't have to name a quarterback, and I'm not going to name a quarterback until I absolutely have to. And I don't think I just don't think they want to have I think Kyle Shanahan is smart enough to know that he needs to have a guy. He can't have it be, he can't be wishy-washy or in either direction. It's either going to be Trey or it's going to be Brock. You can't have it be both. And, I think you look back in 49ers history, that was an issue in 87, right? 88, especially with Joe Montana and Steve Young. I was watching the Montana documentary back late January, and they were talking about that time period, and I found it interesting where Mike Holmgren, he was asking like, "What do we do?" And Mike Holmgren said, "You need to make a decision. That's what's screwing up this team." And
you need to decide one way or another, because Mike's argument was the players don't know who to follow, and there's kind of a chaotic feel to our room.
Exactly. And we haven't seen the 49ers. That's the one thing I will say with Kyle Shanahan. I think where he's qualified to handle this is that if he decides that he's going to go with Brock Purdy, it's going to be Brock Purdy's team until Brock Purdy absolutely can't play anymore. And it's this, and I think it's the same thing the other way around. If Trey Lance is the guy, if he's the guy that starts the season off and they expect him to be the guy throughout the season, he's going to play until he shows that he can't get them where they need to go. And that's when the decision will be made, where they would change it. So I don't think they want to have there be a circus. They definitely don't want that. So they fear that, which is why the messaging they send out is the way that it is. And I think internally, the conversations, I don't know, you're there as well. I don't think the players are really overly split where they can't follow both guys.
I agree. It was the Niners and their players handled the transition from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 quarterbacks better than any organization's ever done it. I mean, I talked to guys on the record, off the record, corners of the locker room where they couldn't be heard. Not one guy, and I wasn't trying to push him for this, but not one guy was like, in any way choosing sides or in any way putting anybody down. I mean, there was total respect for Jimmy, total respect for Trey, total respect for Brock. I loved it. I thought that was awesome. I mean, that to me showed me a locker room and a team that's truly united. And I'll give Lynch and Shanahan tons of credit for that one. The great Ryan Covey with Knuckles in the picture says, "Shout out to you, Kruegs. Can't you keep Brock and Trey? Brock makes peanuts. 49ers have always needed 3+ quarterbacks to make it through a season anyways." Shout out to Ryan Covey, by the way. Everybody, if you're in the market for a Land Rover, get out to Livermore and buy one from Ryan Covey, who adds another comment. He says, "Make it an open competition in camp, and whoever loses out carries the clipboard until they're needed," which will almost surely happen. It's an interesting perspective. 16 different teams, I believe, in the NFL use 3 different quarterbacks for whatever reason this year. So that old saying is like when I was touting Brock Purdy in May and June and July, people were like, "Yeah, you know what? If you get to your third quarterback, you're cooked anyway." Like that was their way of like, let's not talk about it because, hey, if they get to Brock, their season sucks anyway. And they got to Brock, and he played well. Mm-hmm. I'll phrase it this way: in Jack Hammer's ideal July 49er quarterback room, who are the 3 guys in the room, or 4?
Well, for sure, the 3 that I would go with would be somebody, Trey Lance, Brock Purdy. Those are your top 2.
Those are your 2.
Yep. And if you could bring in a guy like Jacoby Brissett, I think that really fits your team well because of what. And the reason I go with Brissett in particular is he hasn't really been on a team that's top level, but you look at what he's done and he doesn't turn the ball over. And I think that's one of the biggest things with this team is when the 49ers don't turn the ball over, they have the ability to win regardless of who that quarterback is. Just don't turn the ball over, have somebody that can operate the offense at a basic level, and you're going to be okay. And I think Jacoby Brissett could do that for you, and it can do it a little bit higher than just a basic level. Andy Dalton, throw in Andy Dalton as another guy. They wanted Andy Dalton back in 2021. He ended up going to Chicago instead because he was told that he could compete for the number 1 spot. So, those are a couple of the veteran names that I think if just take everything out of it, if you can bring one of those guys in, I think that's what you're looking at as your QB 3, I guess.
Here's my ideal quarterback room: Brock, mm-hmm. Trey, Marcus Mariota, mm-hmm. Clayton Tune out of the draft, and I could go with Jake Hayner, but I kind of prefer Clayton Tune. Clayton Tune, Marcus Mariota, Brock, and Trey. What do you think of Mariota and what did you think of Mariota against the Niners last year? He obviously had the best game of his year in that game. He completed a ridiculous percentage of passes, 93%. But I just love the way he ran the short yardage plays on the RPOs, on the mesh point, riding that mesh point. Their running backs were pedestrian. Tyler Huntley, just okay. But there was so much pressure on the 49er defensive front in that game because they had to read, did Mariota have it? Did the running back have it? And that same thing, I think we see the Eagles demonstrate that same kind of pressure with Hurts and their running game. Atlanta had a really good offensive line. Niners were down some guys in that game, but I thought Mariota, in some ways, Jack, gave the 49ers like the template of what in an ideal world Trey Lance looks like as a full-time starter in the NFL. I would love Mariota. I don't know if he's too good of a quarterback to come into this situation. That's always possible. I know he wanted to start at the end of the year. He had some injuries in December, I think, with the knee. What's your assessment of Mariota, both last year in the game against the Niners and just overall?
No, if you can bring in Mariota, that's a name that I didn't have written down or think about right off the top of my head. But again, that's another really good one. And for all the reasons you talked about, his ability to run an offensive scheme that looks very similar to what the 49ers want to do with Trey Lance, the zone read kind of stuff, it kind of opens up things for him to run the ball, opens up the holes for the other running backs. You go back to the game, his performance against the 49ers, he was nearly perfect. What was he, 13 of 14? 124 yards, showed the ability to make plays off of play action, showed the ability to make some quick throws, quick slants and those kind of things, which we know are key pieces to the 49ers offense. If you can bring in a guy like Marcus Mariota, if he's willing to come in here and compete for to be your backup quarterback or willing to sit at number 3 if need be, that would be a great signing for the 49ers because I think he could operate this offense at a high level.
What do you think it would cost? Do you think they could get Mariota for $5 million or less? To me, that's kind of what I think their budget is for this third quarterback, is right around $5 million. I think he made $9 million last year, but he had a somewhat rough year outside of the game against the Niners. Do you think they could get him for 2-year deal for $10 million or something like that?
It's it just depends on what his market is, right? If they're going to go as high as $5 million, there's a number of good veteran guys out there. I would, the only thing that I think holds them back from possibly being able to bring a guy in like Marcus Mariota is, again, does that guy want to come in and be QB3? Because unless the 49ers aren't sold on one of those other 2 young guys being 1 and 2, if Brock Purdy's surgery comes out okay and he's going to be there, does that veteran want to come here, go throughout the offseason workout, and then still be not able to dress on Sundays? And that's, I think, where they kind of find themselves in a little bit of a sticking point with that whole thing as far as the veteran quarterback groups.
If they bring in a Bridgewater or a Brissett or a Andy Dalton or a Marcus Mariota, a true guys who started in the NFL, guys who probably could get backup jobs at a number of places, to me, that will make me want to speculate more about a Trey Lance trade. How convinced are you that Trey is going to be on this roster? And do you think that with Rand Carthon in Tennessee and Saleh in New York, and you've got Mayhew's in Washington, and you've got some former Niner people around the league, do you think that? I mean, how shocked would you be if they traded Trey? What kind of reaction would the fans, bring out if the Trey was in fact dealt? Or is it all? Do you think it's all tied to for what and who else do they have in that quarterback room? Or do you think fans would be upset with the Niner organization if they said, you know what, we're going with Purdy, we're not going with Trey, we don't want a competition, we're going to move Trey on? What's the reaction in Ninerland?
Yeah, given in that scenario, we know that Brock Purdy went through a surgery. He's got the inner brace. He's going to be back in time to maybe get a little bit of training camp in before week 1. if that's the direction, and then they decide to make that move and trade him, and they have a veteran like you're saying, go out and bring in one of those rookies, Jake Hayner, Max Duggan, I think it's Duggan, is the quarterback from TCU who started for 4 years out there. He's kind of your new Brock Purdy type of a guy. If that's the direction that you decide to go, I would be surprised for sure if they decide to trade Trey Lance, just given what they've been through at the quarterback position. To, again, injuries are around the league, but the 49ers in particular they've lost 2 NFC championship games because of quarterback play, dealing with injuries and that kind of stuff. So I would be surprised to see it happen. As far as the fan reaction goes, I think it would be mixed. There's the 49ers fans when it comes to Trey Lance. It's one of the wildest things that I've seen. There's a group of 49er fans that are extreme Trey Lance supporters who are almost saying that they just want to see Trey get traded because they don't feel like he's been given been used correctly. He's been treated, properly, and those kind of things. And then there's others that would be, great with it. It's just the whole Trey Lance phenomenon around the 49ers is very interesting to me.
Yeah. Oh no, it really is. I want to go into the chat for a guy who's got three quick ones here that are all pretty interesting. First one, Billy Garza. Kyle is splitting the locker room by letting Jimmy go. No, that I don't agree with that.
No, either. The
players are losing faith in Kyle's shenanigans. I would say there's zero evidence of that. And I have talked to a lot of players. And now I don't go around the room, hey man, what do you think of Kyle? Looking around, hey, what do you think of Kyle? That's not my thing. But over the course of just normal conversation, Jack, and I've heard you have these same kinds of conversations in the locker room, you'll ask a player about a scheme or a plan, and they will volunteer their devotion and belief in Kyle Shanahan, without you even prompting them. So for Billy to say the players are losing faith in Kyle Shanahan, I see zero evidence of that. Do you see any evidence of that?
No, it's the opposite. I think they have complete faith in him. That's why they've been able to do what they've done the last couple of years with all the injuries, all the drama around the quarterback spot, everything. I mean, just look, the last 2 years. 2 years ago, they were 3-5. They get to an NFC championship game. They completely turn that thing around. This year, they're 3-4. They go 4, and then they win, 10 in a row. This is to think that the players are losing faith in Kyle Shanahan, I think, is the furthest thing from the truth.
Yeah, no, Billy, I respect you, brother, but the players are not losing faith in Kyle Shanahan. All right, here we go. That was the Billy Garza duo. Here's the Billy Garza trio, triple. The triple, as they remember Joker's Wild. Joker, and the triple. All right. The fans are losing faith in Kyle Shanahan. I'm not going to say shenanigans. Come on. The fans are losing faith in Kyle. Do you think there's any truth in that, or is that select 49er content creators with large popularity, and they may be shaping the fans' feelings about Kyle? Do you get any sense? I mean, this is a harder one for us because we're not sitting in the stands. We're sitting in the press box. The glass is about 3 inches thick. It's just ridiculous. You can barely even. It's almost like we're on a Mars. What's your sense of the fans' feelings about Kyle?
I do think that from the fans' perspective, there's a little bit more of a losing faith in Kyle Shanahan for sure than there is in the locker room. I think the belief that they're losing faith in the locker room is just fan speak. That's not happening. But I think the fans are getting frustrated with the fact that they're not getting over the hump. 2 straight NFC championship games, a Super Bowl loss. That's where they're losing faith. I think it's the fans are for sure. And I do agree that some of it is because of who we're following on here, because we see the content creator stuff and a lot of the comments I see are a result of that. So I do think there's a portion of that. I think it goes a little bit of both ways, but I would say if there is a loss of faith, it is coming more from the fans than it is from the team, from the locker room. And I agree with Bomber here. He's right. I think Kyle's just fine. I think Kyle Shanahan, I didn't agree with his play call, using what he did at the beginning of the game against Philadelphia, but overall he's a really good coach.
Is there any pressure and this is another one that I'm asking you questions you can't really answer, but I think they're interesting. Is there any pressure from Jed, Dr. John, the Yorks on Shanahan and Lynch, or are they not applying any more pressure than John and Kyle would apply to themselves? Is there pressure? They've had enormous success, and on the heels of Tom Sula, Chip Kelly, um, they've had, obviously it's a major upgrade. They've been in the NFC Championship game 3 times in the last 4 years. They've been to a Super Bowl with this regime. But we know how Jed and the family think. They think of Super Bowls, and they haven't
Mhm.
been able to bust through. Do you think there's
Mhm.
any pressure from within that we're not privy to coming from ownership on the regime?
There should be, because you definitely need to get past it, right? This is a different situation than, like, say, with Jim Harbaugh, right, where they tried to get rid of Harbaugh after 2013, where the whole trade speculation. I think this is a different situation because you don't have the in Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, you don't have that grind that you had with Harbaugh, right? It's a little bit more free flowing. Everybody gets along a little bit better, but the desire to win is still there. Uh, I do think that if they're not able to sustain at least the success they're having, or get a little bit, or finally get that Super Bowl win, that you're looking at Shanahan maybe having 2 years left before you see him maybe having to move on.
Interesting. Niners Nation has an article up right now about how ESPN's bold moves for the Niners this offseason is blow the budget on the secondary. The 49ers are 18th in the NFL right now in cap space, according to Over the Cap. Their effective cap space is even lower at about 3.3 million. The Over the Cap says they have about 8 million. So, there's all kinds of potential, to restructure. So the cap is kind of it's kind of an elusive target to discuss it in any kind of concrete terms, because you don't know what their plans are to restructure guys and create more room, so on and
Mhm.
so forth. Where they're at, ESPN thinks they're going to spend a lot of money on the secondary, and they're pointing to guys like Jordan Poyer, who I saw interviewed the other day, and sounds like he wants no part of going back to Buffalo and that cold weather. But as far as the 49ers in the secondary, do you think that they are going to spend that money? I mean, I'm going to talk to Vish later on today, and this is one of the topics we are going to get into is, do you think the 49ers upgrades in the secondary are more likely to come through the draft or free agency?
And this is interesting. I do think that for the 49ers, the safety position is the one that they need to make a move at most. There's been a lot of talk about right tackle, defensive, all these different spots, but the safety position opposite of Talon Hufanga is the one spot where they don't have a young guy that can step in. They don't have a long-term solution there. Even if they bring Tashawn Gibson back, who I thought played at a level better than Jimmy Garoppolo as a free safety with his ability to get the turnovers at that position. If they're able to bring in a guy like a Poyer or somebody like that, if they want to make that a long-term investment, I think that would be a solid play. I think that is the spot where most people aren't really paying attention to. Everybody's really focused on this offensive line because of the quarterback injuries. I think safety is where they make the big splash.
I think you're right. I was talking to Wayne Breezy yesterday, and I mentioned to Wayne that if it was up to me, I've got three takeaways from the Super Bowl. One is I think the Niners ought to go for it more on fourth down. I think they ought to go for it from like their own 40 to the other team's goal line every time they're fourth and less than 5. I think they should try to go for it a little bit more. I think that's where the NFL is going. I think the Eagles are on the cutting edge there. I think it puts more pressure on the defense. There's fewer possessions in the NFL game. They need to be maximized. That's one change. Two, I'd like to see the Niners copy Philly's rugby scrum short yardage play. You've got Juszczyk, you got Jason Poe and Zakel and backup offensive linemen. Get them back there. I mean, to me, that's, especially if they're not going to blow the whistle and they're just going to you're going to get a second effort and a third effort and a fourth effort, and forward progress is never going to be ruled. Nobody's ever going to blow a whistle. If that's the case, I think that play almost is an automatic to pick up a yard and probably automatic to pick up 2 yards. It might be automatic to pick up 5 yards. Heck, you may see teams just go no huddle with the rugby scrum and just, see if they can just get a first down that way. And the third thing that I learned in the Super Bowl is that if you're going to beat the great Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes at this point, there are no shortcuts. You have to have impact dominating players on all 3 levels of your defense. And I think with Greenlaw and Warner, they have a couple linebackers. You could argue with Armstead and Bosa, they have a couple guys up front, but they don't necessarily have those impact guys on the backside. And the guy that I would absolutely pay in free agency, I'd want to bring back Jimmy Ward, who, by the way, today liked a picture of him in a Texans uniform on Twitter. And so it sounds like he might be going to join D'Amico. But I want to bring back Jimmy Ward, and I want to sign Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. And I'm willing to pay $10, $12 million each for those 2 guys. I think they're both difference makers. That's how I would address the secondary. Give me those 2 guys, and then I'll fill in the holes around them. But I got to have 2 guys who just absolutely show up to detonate and destroy, and that's what those guys do. Give me your thoughts on Jimmy Ward's future and on Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and his free agency and what he would be on this defense.
Yeah, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, that's exactly what you're talking about. That guy that can, he's basically can come fill everything that you got from Jimmy Ward in terms of that ability to be the back end guy, but also step up and play in the slot if necessary. He does that well. He has that ability to separate you from the football. If you're able to bring in one guy and it's Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, I think that that's a positive. As far as being able to get both, I don't know if that's necessary in the cards just because of the long-term ramifications on the cap. And I know you can work around it and those types of things. I mean, it'd be great for the 49ers if they, in a perfect world, I think your suggestion of both is exactly what you do. You get Chauncey Gardner-Johnson to be your deep free safety, and you play Jimmy Ward up closer around the line of scrimmage, really as your third linebacker. In a way, I think that's in a perfect world, that's the direction that you would go.
Couple more minutes with Jack Hammer before we say goodbye. What Mike McGlinchey? I kind of think of Mike McGlinchey as gone. I know the Bears have interest. They have $94 million in cap room. They can make him an offer that just goes so far beyond the Niners' budget. And just looking at the list of offensive tackles and offensive line play around the league, I know McGlinchey is a favorite guy for Niner social media people to beat up on, but he's been pretty good, and he's going to get paid a lot of money. So I think he's gone. Do you agree, or do you think Lynch has always been as a defender of his using a top 10 pick on McGlinchey, and I know they like him as a culture player. He's definitely a locker room leader. What's your assessment of McGlinchey and his free agency?
From everything I hear, he's not going to be able to. That's the one person that they're not going to be able to bring back. It's he's going to be getting a big deal. He's, I think, probably the top right tackle for agent on the market. He's going to get paid a high dollar amount. I don't expect to see him want to take anything less to come back to San Francisco. So I think he moves on, and that's an issue. Just I think the 49ers are better with Mike McGlinchey than they are without him. But at the same time, this is a team that went all the way to the NFC Championship game in 2021 with Tom Compton playing right tackle. They can do that. A guy like Holton McKivitz, I think could be the next Tom Compton. But if he's kind of, I don't know. We'll see. He's a younger guy who is a really good run blocker, struggles a little bit in pass protection. Can he pick it up? Or do you bring back Daniel Brunskill and do you have a competition between those two with the loser being your swing tackle, swing offensive lineman in Daniel Brunskill's case? So there's a lot of directions that they could go here. And you also have the draft, and there might be some free agents out there as well. I just don't see McGlinchey being able to come back, and that's a shame for the 49ers.
Do you think the Niners want to bring back any of their tight ends outside of Kittle? They're talking to so many tight ends. I would love them to get a first-round pick and draft Michael Mayer out of Notre Dame. I think he's a lock to be a great NFL player. I would love to see Mayer and Kittle in the same offense, especially if, the way if Brock's the starter, the way he likes to utilize the tight end in the middle of the field, if you had Mayer and Kittle, man, that would be incredible. I don't see them having that pick unless they decide to move a Trey Lance or something like that. But Croft is a free agent. Dwelly's a free agent. Jordan Matthews is a free agent. Charlie Warner and Kittle are the only tight ends under contract. Seems pretty clear that they're eager to upgrade there.
Yeah, they definitely need to add some tight ends. Warner, I can't catch, and that's too bad. I thought Croft was okay, but they really haven't utilized their second tight end. Their second tight end has been more of Kyle Juszczyk than anything else out of their 21 personnel packages. But yeah, that's a spot that I think that they need to go out and make some moves there. There's some really good guys in the draft this year. There's the one out of Iowa that everybody's talking about. He'd be their late second round, possibly, maybe a little bit later than that, but not too much. Tucker Kraft is a guy who I put down. Luke, I'm not sure how you say his name, Schoonmaker, Josh Wiley. Those are all players that I think the 49ers have already met with. So
Sam Laporta from Iowa. Laporta's I like Payne Durham from Purdue, who's a pretty good player. They met with Zach Kuntz from Old Dominion. You said Luke Schoonmaker from Michigan, who's a big physical 6'6", 250. It sounds like Adam Peters in an interview with Barrows said that he felt like DN, D tackle, and tight end were enormously deep, and it sounds like they're eager to find themselves another tight end.
Yeah, I think they need to. They need to. George Kittle's kind of getting towards the end. I don't know how much longer. Many more times you're going to want to restructure his contract, but they need some guys there. Free agent market, do you go after a guy like Robert Tonyan from Green Bay, who I think fits their needs pretty well. They need to have, if they can get that kind of stuff and really open up their offense a little bit, if they have a second tight end that can actually catch the ball when you hit him with it.
One of the things I got to ask you about, there was a tweet today. I don't know. Did you see this? It basically was a GIF of a bunch of guys brawling on a street, and somebody put down like Niner Twitter when talking about quarterbacks. And it just showed everybody in this knockdown, drag out brawl. And I'm just kind of wondering, why do you think that is? I mean, the Niners have Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner, and they're both great linebackers, and Azeez Al-Shaair, who I also think is a great linebacker, and only two of them can play. And a lot of times Al-Shaair is on the sideline, but you don't have people brawling and picking sides over Warner versus Greenlaw versus Al-Shaair. They're just like, go Niners, and whoever's out there, that's our guy. But when it comes time for a quarterback, it's like, and this one kills me because I was telling people in May that I believed in Brock Purdy, everybody knows that I'm pro Brock Purdy. But just because I'm pro Brock Purdy doesn't mean I'm anti Trey Lance. I actually really like Trey Lance, and I'm really convinced that Trey Lance is going to be a very good NFL quarterback in time. Mm-hmm. So I just don't understand where it's like, are you a Purdy guy? Are you a Lance guy? Are you a Jimmy guy? Why do we do this? Why do we cannibalize as a fan base over the quarterback position when they're all here and there's no indication that any of them aren't going to be here? I mean, obviously Jimmy's not going to be here, but what do you make of the whole picking sides with the quarterback? Like, you couldn't possibly like both. Where I don't find them polarizing at all. I think they're both really solid human beings who are complementary of one another, different skill sets, different type players, but really solid kinds of guys. They're both the kind of guy you'd want your daughter to marry. I mean, they're really solid on the scale of like good guys, bad guys. These guys are at the very top of the list. It's not like you got one guy who's a bad guy and the other guy's a good. They're both good guys. I mean, they're both great guys. I really believe that. Why so much? I'm a Trey guy. I'm a Brock guy. Why can't people just be like, I'm a Niner guy and let's see how it goes? Is there any reason for it?
I think the reason is it's where it's different from, like you said with Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, that kind of thing. It's different because only one can be on the field. It's either Trey Lance is on the field or Brock Purdy. They can't both be on the field at the same time, at least yet, right? And I don't know. This whole thing is it's wild to me. If you're anything negative on Trey Lance, there's a large group of 49ers Twitterverse that you can't even have a conversation where you have anything negative about Trey Lance or you mention Trey Lance. You can't even really talk positively about Brock Purdy and have without being having that pro Trey side get all upset about it. Look at what happened with the Matt Barrows article on the Athletic from just
about
last
the
week.
about the what was it, the processing speed or that kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's a situation where I think what happened is people missed the point of the article. It's like, well, he wasn't fair to Trey Lance. He wasn't fair to Trey. I mean, was there anybody who actually follows the 49ers who doesn't understand that one of the main reasons that Trey Lance was thought so highly of was that he's an intelligent person, that he processes the game at a very high level. The need for a certain segment of the fan base to constantly defend him is partly, I think, why you see this. And that goes back to that comment you just put up a minute ago from Bomber. There's a group that really needs to defend this guy because they feel, again, it goes back to, they feel like he's been treated unfairly. And I think when you look at it from a Twitter standpoint, there's wild factions on both. And for me, what I've been trying to do is just ignore both of the extremes. I tend to have more friends on the extreme Trey positive side than I do on the negative side. But and I think because of my pushback on them, people think that I'm anti Trey Lance. I actually had somebody say that about my channel on a comment the other day.
It's wild.
And it was all about the title that I used, and my response to him was, that's the title. If you watch the video, if you watch the segment because it was with Wayne, who you just had on yesterday. I was like, if you go and you watch the video, neither one of us watch the video, and the title's the title. And the title was built off of something that John Lynch said. And so then we both gave our takes, and well, quite frankly, it was different than what the title was. And so sometimes people just see a snippet, and instead of taking the time to really, the biggest thing is people have the inability or the lack of desire to understand the other side. I think that's the biggest thing.
It's weird. We're like a highlight culture. We're a headline culture. We're an instant reaction culture. But I mean, and maybe neutral doesn't make clicks. I don't know. And like for me, I came out and I read the John Lynch stuff in Indy. His comments is like, I think there's a very good chance they're going to trade Trey. And people are just like, you're rooting for it. I'm not rooting for it. I'm actually deathly afraid of it because I really think Trey's going to emerge as a really good player. And I don't know if it's going to be this year. I think it likely is not going to be this year. But I would bet almost anything that Trey Lance is going to be a top-tier NFL quarterback before he hangs it up. And that's just where I'll put my evaluation. Last one, and I appreciate you stopping by. What are the Niners going to do with Javon Kinlaw? He was horrible down in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. He was so bad that I think he's the reason that Drake Jackson was inactive, because they couldn't trust that what Javon was going to give them, and they had to have an extra tackle up every time. And I think Drake, basically could have been up a couple more games that he wasn't up just because they needed that extra tackle. And then to me, I liked him I liked Kinlaw in the way he played in the first game back and the second game back. And then it just was like downhill from there. And it culminated in the Eagle NFC Championship game where he just got bounced around like it was me. Like I was standing in there against Jason Kelsey and he's throwing him 5 and 6 yards around. He's flailing arms and Armstead, who's been his defender. And I love that about Armstead. But Armstead's like, hey, don't point the finger at him. It was me and this and that. No, Eric, it wasn't you. You were standing up your combo block. His combo block was pushing him into the mezzanine level at the stadium. I mean, it was stunning to watch a man that big in Javon Kinlaw get pushed around that consistently. by the Eagles offensive line. Either the Eagles offensive line is the greatest thing that we have ever seen, or Javon can't anchor for whatever reason. He's not a free agent. He's under contract. Are they going to trade him? They're obviously not going to pick up that 5th-year option on the deal, but I don't know that he seems like the kind of personality where if he's in the room, he's not playing, he might not be the happiest guy. I don't know that how that's going to work. Do they wind up moving him? Do they wind up bringing him back? He can't be the starter inside. They miss DJ Jones. The difference between Kinlaw and DJ Jones, as far as functional strength, is night and day. And they have to find a defensive tackle, to the point where I think defensive tackle is their number one need over offensive tackle, over quarterback, over anything, corner, safety. Number one need, in my opinion, defensive tackle. What would you, if you ran the Niners, Jack Hammer, what are you going to do with Javon Kinlaw?
If I can trade him and I can get something back in return for a position, I think you talked about this first. I heard it from somebody else on Twitter who heard it from somebody else, but I think it started with you, with the trading Kinlaw to New York from Mekhi Becton. I think that came from you originally.
Right. I'm just looking at guys, big, strong guys with a lot of potential who have a bad knee and both need a change of scenery.
Yeah, and if you could do a move like that, then that makes sense. Other than something like that, I don't see the 49ers being able to trade Javon Kinlaw. I don't think there's really anybody that wants to necessarily bring him on. It doesn't do them any good to just release him. I think what happens is you go into training camp, and if he can be one of your 10 best defensive linemen, he's on your team. And otherwise, maybe it's a late trade that you move him off for peanuts if you have to. But otherwise, I would see I can see him be back on the team. You talked about the DJ Jones player. They might have that guy already on the roster. We just haven't seen him yet in Kalia Davis. He's right.
Built the same.
He's built the same.
I think he's even a better pass rusher. I don't know if he's as strong against the run, but I think he's a better pass rusher.
Yeah, he's built the same. I think he's more athletic than DJ Jones. At least, from in the past. We'll see what he is, and so they might have that guy there already. We just haven't had a chance to see him because he was, injured when they drafted him. But I'm looking forward to seeing what Kalia Davis, can do. And in some ways, I'm wondering if he can be like their Kevin Fagan. You're old enough to remember Kevin Fagan, who dealt with a couple of knee surgeries and didn't play. They think they took him. He was part of that 87 draft, but he didn't, or 86 draft, excuse me. Yeah. He didn't play the first year. Didn't really start playing until 87, and he put in some really good years for the 49ers. So they might have that guy already. They're going to bring in. They need to add a bunch of bodies there, because right now they only have Kevin Givens. They have their starting group, Javon Kinlaw included in that, with Eric Armstead, and they have Kalia Davis and Kevin Givens. Kevin Givens, I think, is an underrated performer in there, but they need to add some bodies, and if they can get some guys through the draft that can kind of be their long-term reinforcements, definitely. As far as being their top priority, I don't know if it's number one, but it's definitely something that they're going to be looking at.
I'm going to say it. I'm going to whisper it so not everybody hears me, but I am going to say it. I think Kalia Davis is going to be great. I think Kalia Davis is going to be, outside of Brock, I think Kalia Davis is going to be the best player the Niners took in that draft. I really believe it. You watch him at Central Florida, he moves incredibly well. I mean, you think Kevin Givens is a one-gap penetrator with some quickness? This guy's bigger, stronger, faster, and is quicker. I mean, Kalia Davis, I think is going to be really, really good as an interior rusher. All right, I said that was the last question. We'll actually have one last question.
Okay.
Give me one name of a player. Doesn't have to be a great player. Doesn't have to be a good player. Just give me one name of a player, either in free agency or the draft, that you could easily envision being a 49er next year. Is there any player that you would say, as we're sitting here on the 3rd of March, that you could say, you know what? I don't think he's going to be a starter. I don't think he's going to be a star, but I would bank this guy is in Niner camp this summer.
Yeah, that's a tough one for me.
It is tough. It's a tough one. I'll go first.
Yeah, you go first. Give me some
Charles
time to
Fleming
figure it out.
here throws my guy out. He says Solomon Thomas got screwed being moved to defensive end when his whole career was at defensive tackle. He is now bounced around. Solomon Thomas, I think, offers something in a rotation. I think I could see the Niners bringing him back. I don't think he's the answer. He's not like, he doesn't replace Kinlaw up front. He doesn't really, he's just more of like, you'd play him in a rotation. But I think his football character, his motor, his really those two things right there. I think they're the player that they loved coming out in the draft. He still has that motor. He still has that football character. He wouldn't be held the second time around to the standards of being, a top 5 pick. I think they got 7 free agents on their defensive line. They need scheme versatile guys who can play a bunch of spots in their backup spots. I think Solly is in some ways a perfect addition for the Niners as far as a depth piece on their line. I predict Solomon Thomas returns.
Ooh, that's a good one. That is a good one, because that's a player who I felt was starting to kind of elevate his game a little bit once they put him back more inside as a regular piece inside. I thought he started to really come along. That's a good one. I would go back to the safeties, and I know Chauncey Gardner-Johnson would be a terrific fit. Yes. I think I'm going to go a little bit on the higher side. I'm going to shoot. They're going to make one big splash signing. And I don't think they're going to make multiple. I think they're going to have enough money to make one big one, and they're going to be able to bring back a number of their guys. I'm going to go with your Chauncey Gardner-Johnson from earlier, because I think that safety is their one spot that they need. They need to fill in safety. It's either going to be a guy like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson or Jesse Bates from Cincinnati, who's on the younger side. He's only 26, and that would be the reason to go after him over Gardner-Johnson. I think they're both relatively young, so they're going to make a big splash signing at safety, I think.
Jack, man, I love our conversations, man. I love having you on. Let's try to do this a little bit more on the regular. Tell us what you got cooking on your channel. I mean, obviously the combine going on, the NFL free agency. We're literally a week to 10 days away from free agency. So there's going to be a lot more content for all of us Niner content creators to discuss in the weeks, in the days and weeks ahead. But give people an idea if they head over to your channel. One, tell them where they can find it, how often you stream, and what they may find in the next week to 10 days coming from you.
Yeah, get yourself over. The channel is Inside the 49ers with Jack Hammer. And in terms of content, today I'll be going live at 3:00 with Rohan from 49ers Web Zone, Rohan Chakravarthi.
He's great.
Yeah, we get together every Friday. We usually do a dual stream, so you can check it on either of our channels. And then as far as my channel, Monday at 7 in the evening for sure. Tuesday at 5:20. That's the Hammer and Nail Show with Jesse Naylor. Every week we do that on Tuesdays.
He's Thursday, great too. He's terrific. I just met him a couple weeks ago, but I love streaming with him. He's terrific. Yeah,
I know Jesse's a great guy. We got together back in 2021, that off season leading into the 2021 season, and it's been a lot of fun. We go back. We used to argue a lot more on Twitter than we do now, but it's a fun conversation. One thing I will say about Jesse that I respect about him is even with every time we disagree, neither one of us, it's never personal. It's always just about football, and we can tell each other we're full of crap and be fine with it because we're just talking about football. And that's that's why I like the guy so much. And then Thursdays, I'm always on Thursday night, usually around 7:00. And then, like I said, I already told you, Friday is Rohan. And then throughout the day, depending on what happens, if you are subscribed to the channel and you have little bell notifications on, when there's breaking news, I try to give a little short video on that with my takes as well. So lots of information there.
Love your content, man. You do a great job. And, when the Niners start making moves and you see me texting, Jack, please come on the Krueger show, hit me back, and we'll make it a reality. I'm going to play a couple spots here and have a couple final thoughts, but I'll let you go. Have a great rest of your Friday, Jack, and thanks for jumping on the Krueger show and good conversation. We'll do it again.
Absolutely. Anytime, just hit me up, Larry. I'll always answer you back. I promise.
Appreciate you, Jack. Have a good one, man. The great Jack Hammer. He is great. Follow his channel because he puts out phenomenal content. Really, really good. All right, we are brought to you by Pig in a Pickle. Check them out in Corte Madera and in Emeryville. They're open 7 days a week in Marin County. They're open Wednesday through Sunday in Emeryville. The brisket, the pulled pork, the barbecued chicken, the ribs, the house-made sausages. Damon and Mary, they work at it, and that's why Pig in a Pickle is such a phenomenal restaurant. You need to check it out. I love the brisket. I always go brisket sandwich, brisket chili. They make a brisket chili that is absolutely mouth-watering. And I asked Damon Stainbrook, the owner, about it, and he's like, man, in the wintertime, it's gone. In the summertime, sometimes we'll push it a little bit because it's, it's hot. People don't like eating chili in the hot weather. But in the cold weather, in the wintertime, he's like, as fast as we make it, it's gone. So if you go to Pig in a Pickle, ask for the brisket chili. The potato chips cooked in beef fallow are absolutely amazing as well. They got a kids menu. They got craft beers. You can order to take out. They open at 11 a.m. in Marin. They close at 8 p.m. Don't show up at 7:30 hoping you're going to get the pick of the litter, because the reality is it's barbecue. So a lot of it, they run out. They literally run out because it's a real barbecue spot. Anyway, here's a little video from our good friends, Damon and Mary, the owners of Pig in a Pickle. Also, special thanks to the sponsor of today's show, New York Style Italian Sausage. Phenomenal product. I love the breakfast sausage, the Italian mild, the Italian spicy. Man, you can't go wrong with New York Style Italian Sausage, often imitated, never equaled. Make sure you check them out at their website, NewYorkStyleSausage.com.
So New York Style Sausage was started over 70 years ago. We are the largest producer of fresh Italian sausage on the West Coast.
What makes our sausage in New York style is really the recipe came from back east, from New York, from Connecticut.
If you look at all of our labels, there's maximum 4 or 5 ingredients, which we're really proud of.
There's no preservatives, no MSG, fresh in, fresh out.
The pork comes in fresh, goes out fresh. There's never any freezing throughout the process. We've always used fine quality cuts. We're never going to deter from that. It's one of the reasons why our sausage is so good. I guarantee you put our sausage up against anybody else's from a flavor standpoint, no one will beat it, hands down.
Hey, do yourself a favor and do me a favor. Go buy a package of the New York Style Italian sausage. Guaranteed you will love it. Guaranteed.
And last but certainly not least, big thanks to Casey Bateman and the good people at Telmetrics for being a sponsor of the show today. If you are a weekend warrior, you play sports, you get hurt, and you don't want to go to the doctor. Oh my God, it's going to cost me an arm and a leg. I don't want to go to urgent care, but I got a bum shoulder and I just can't get it right. And I played tennis and I got tennis elbow and I got all kinds of aches and pains, but I don't want to see the doctor. Go to telmetrics.co, TELMETRIX.co. It's designed for you to use. It will greatly benefit you. They use computer vision and artificial intelligence, and they provide a platform for outpatient rehab therapy services, both in the clinical and the telehealth environments. Here's another word from Telmetrics, TELMETRIX.co. coming down the home stretch on the Krueger Show. Big day on the Krueger Show. We got a lot going on the channel today. Ryan Hensley's going to join us at 2. I'm going to be on Grant's channel at 3:30, and then the great Vish Kumaran stops by tonight at 5:30. We're not going post game tonight after Warriors Pelicans because I'm just going to hang with the family on the Friday night. So we're not going post game on the Warriors tonight. We did a long post game last night with Rye and Dan and Cy and Red and Baller and all the boys. So check that out from last night. Good dialogue. But tonight, we're not going to be doing a Warrior post game. But check me out on Grant's channel at 3:30. Check out Vish at 5:30 on my channel. Check out the great Ryan Hensley, who's going to stop by in about 90 minutes, which is about 12:30 right now. He's going to be by at 2. Bomber T says all the heavy hitters. Yeah, we'll call it Heavy Hitter Friday. I'll say this. I love talking to these guys. Grant's awesome. Jesse's awesome. Jack, Lombardi. I know some of these guys don't get along with each other, but I get along with all of them. And I really love bringing you their perspectives on this channel. So, man, I hope you're enjoying a lot of it. One of the questions I want to throw into as I read a couple of these chats, I want to throw you guys the question that I threw Jack Hammer. If you're in the chat right now, give me the one player that you would predict, not that you want, because want and predict are different thoughts. Give me the one player that you predict who's not a Niner will be a Niner this next coming season. It could be a free agent. It could be a draft pick. It could be somebody in the collegiate draft that you saw this week at the combine that you're saying, man, or you could be somebody that's a free agent that you think is absolutely a fit for the 49ers. I'm interested to see what the fans have to say, because a lot of times the fans know as much or more than any of us. And a lot of you guys have just as good an insight. You just don't have as much time to devote to sitting here in front of a camera and a microphone and talking Niners all day, because you got your own life to lead, your own job, your own career, your own family, your own stress, so on and so forth. So I never, it's funny. There's a lot of people that I always thought there's 2 ways to do media, whether you're in print form, whether you're on the radio, whether you're in television, whether you're a YouTuber like I am today. You can assume people are stupid, or you can assume people are smart. And I always had, I know a lot of people in radio who used to tell me over and over again, man, the callers are so fucking stupid. And I never agreed with that. I came from the Gary Radnich school where we put value in the callers. And Gary loved talking to the callers. And I love talking to the callers. And I think the callers are sometimes the smartest people on the radio. A lot of times, I mean, the one thing you can say about the callers are not, going to kiss somebody's ass for a free hot dog. The caller's not going to tell you some bullshit story about somebody because they're afraid of stank guy in the lunchroom at Oracle Park, or, Levi's. Oh, I don't want to get the Niner PR guys mad. You got to remember this. Yeah. Do we have access that you don't have? Yeah. I'm in the locker room talking to guys. You guys aren't. But so what? You also have independence that I don't have. Now, you know me. I'm probably as independent as it gets. But you know what I'm saying. There's a lot of media people that just say things for effect. There's a lot of media people that just say things so they don't get stank guy in the locker room. There's a lot of media people walking around telling people what they want to hear just to ingratiate themselves for no goddamn reason at all. Just because they'd rather do it that way, and any opposition they find like uncomfortable. I kind of revel in it. I kind of celebrate it. I like it when I walk into a room and I know people have been talking trash, or that they really don't like me. I kind of get off on that. When I walk into a room and I see media people and they're talking trash, and I know they're talking trash, or they have talked trash, or they're just the kind of people that would talk trash, I laugh. I laugh to myself. One, because I'm going to be here in 5 years. I'm going to be here in 10 years. Many of them will not be. But also just because I really believe in the fans. I really believe in the people in the seats. I really believe in the people that take a day off and go out to camp and they really want to watch it. They know as much as we do, and they're more independent. They say what they want because they're not worried about pissing off Emmanuel Mosley, and they're not worried about upsetting Kyle Shanahan. And they're not, somehow I better say it this way because I gotta look at Mr. Tattoo-handed Gabe Kapler today, and he may get mad at me. So what? But some people live their life that way. So I'm gonna throw it to you guys. Give me the one player that you are gonna predict is gonna be a Niner next year. Could be somebody that they have that's a free agent that they're gonna re-sign. Could be a draft choice. Could be a free agent. So let's hit the chat and see what people have to say. We got a bunch of people weighing in on it. Mike Baker says, Krug, thanks for believing in us fans. Absolutely, Mike. And I'm not pandering. By the way, people go, you're pandering to the fans. I don't pander. I don't pander. Anybody who knows me knows I bring it. I shoot it out the way I see it. I'm a straight shooter. I have no agenda. I don't dislike any player. I don't like any player. It's not personal. It's always about winning. That's what I'm about. Eric Hernandez says Brian Burns would be nice opposite Nick Bosa. Ooh, yeah. Could you imagine? Could you imagine that one? Brian Burns on one edge and Nick Bosa on the other edge. You thought the Niners looked good in 19 with D Ford. You put Brian Burns opposite Bosa and watch the fuck out. Maximiliano, says Jimmy Ward. I like that one a lot. Bring me some Jimmy Ward. I did an interview with Jimmy Ward last year, and he's like, you know what? If you hit a guy in his knee, if you hit a guy in his ribs, if you hit him in his patella, he doesn't move around like he did before. And then he was like, kind of give me that Cheshire cat grin. I love some guys play for money, some guys play for glory, and as the old coach said, Larry, some guys just play to fuck people up. And that's what I love about Jimmy Ward. He plays to fuck people up. He really does. He might say otherwise, but that's a lie. He plays to fuck people up. Quincy J says, I trust Krueger. Anyone he says we should get, I'm going to roll with whoever he thinks should be a 49er. Quincy, I like that. I don't know if I like blind faith in anything, but if you're going to have blind faith, have it be in me. All right. There you go. Scotch says, Marcus Davenport would be great in a realistic addition. I agree. Marcus Davenport has not fulfilled his potential so far. Opposite Bosa, I believe he would. Bay Area baller in the house. Yannick Ngakoue would be sweet opposite Bosa. Oh my God, I'm a Ngakoue head, man. I loved him at Maryland. He was great at Maryland, and he's great now. Jan Chozela, all these big, flashy, expensive names. For me, it's going to be Nate Sudfeld. Really? Nate Sudfeld. Wow, okay. I could see it. I could absolutely see it. Charles Fleming. Larry, Jair Brown from Penn State. Charles, did you see my video? I just did a video. I'm not sure if it's out yet, but I did a video on all these DBs that the Niners have been meeting with in Indy. Jair Brown's one of them. He was on the Bruce Feldman Freaks list. This guy is a crazy athlete, and he was the MVP of the Rose Bowl. So I love me some Jair Brown. I love Jamie Robinson from Florida State a little bit more, but Jair Brown and Jamie Robinson are my two safeties that I'm absolutely loving in this upcoming draft. Do I see? Oh, look at this one. I'm all in. Bosa brothers would be instant Super Bowl. Nick was asked about that. I don't think that's a possibility because of money, but how awesome would Joey Bosa and Nick Bosa? That would be great. Maximiliano, Aaron Rodgers. Wow. Is that in a trade for Trey Lance? Is that in a trade for Brock Purdy? Here's one. Alejandro Gonzalez is Miles Murphy. Dude, Miles Murphy is the Clemson D end. Freak. Total freak. I mean, he is a crazy workout warrior. I looked at some of the numbers on Miles Murphy. I mean, it's just an awesome, his breakdown on Miles Murphy. Do I have it here? I guess it's inside. I did a whole breakdown on it. God, where is that? I thought that was here. Anyway, I had it here. Maybe it's here somewhere. But yeah, I did a breakdown on Miles Murphy, and he's another guy that was on the Bruce Feldman freaks list. He runs like the wind, absolute monster. But I'll say this, he's probably going 10th, maybe 12th. Another vote for Joey Bosa. Dante Johnson, that's a Scotch. You know what? Dante Johnson's like the constant. Life goes on, except with Dante Johnson, who stays with the Niners, who's a good dude, by the way. I'm all in, says Marcus Mariota. There you go. John Mack says Clayton Tune in the 5th round. I don't know if Tune's going to be there in the 5th round. Fish and Chips just goes Larry with 3 exclamation points. Fish. Chips. All right. We got this one. Eric Hernandez. Damn, Larry, working hard to play harder. I'm all in, says, I taught Vish everything he knows. I'm bringing that up to Vish later on tonight. Bomber T heard my lineup of heavy hitters today. He said, all heavy hitters. Yeah, Heavy Hitter Friday. Maybe that should be what we should call it, Heavy Hitter Friday. Every Friday, just line them up. Just Niner content creators galore. All the best of the best. Here comes Grant. Here comes Vish. Here comes Hammer. I mean, here comes Hensley. It's just an all-star team. You know, it would be sweet. And I don't know if it would be sweet or a nightmare. But what do you think of like a post-game live stream party with all of the Niner content creators? I mean, it would be massive. It would be a massive audience. I don't know that people would like it. Everybody's got their favorite. Bomber T, thank you. Larry is the man. Bomber T, I appreciate you, brother. Appreciate you greatly. One other thing before I get out of here. We got the Krug Show t-shirts, and I know I got 300 of them now. Pretty good looking shirt, just like our logo. They're $25 and $10 to ship. And if I can do it a little cheaper, I'll gladly do it a little cheaper. But that's what we're charging, $35. It's a little expensive for a shirt, I get it, but it's some people want me to ship them across to the UK. I've had shipping to New York. But it's a cool shirt, and if you want one, just get a hold of me either in the chat or DM me on Twitter. I'll follow you back, and you can DM me, and then you can pay me Venmo, and then I'll just take it down to the post office and mail it to you. But I've got large, extra large, double XL, and I had a couple people ask for triple XL, and I've ordered them, and they're almost done. The shirts are in, but he's still got to put the logo on. So I'll have double, triple XL, XL, and large. So I've already gotten rid of about 30 of them or so, roughly. But if anybody wants a Krug Show t-shirt, I will gladly have that for you. We're still hoping to go to spring training. We'll have a little knowledge of that later today. If we are going to go, we'll do a whole campaign, and it'll be brought to you by the New York Style Sausage Company. So we're still looking to possibly do that. Colored TV says, if you had the big Niner content creators, Grant would yell over everyone. No, he wouldn't. I don't think so. Scotch says, I would need an XXL after a visit to Pig and a Pickle. Yeah, I wanted an XL t-shirt, but I went to Pig and a Pickle and I had a lot of brisket. I now need a double XL. Fish and Chips is Darnell Washington tight end. Larry, any ideas? He is a monster. I mean, he is an absolute monster. 6'6", 265, but lean. Darnell Washington is 6'6", 265, and he probably could play at 280 and not look too bulky. It's a great year for tight ends. I think Michael Mayer is a Pro Bowl player. And that's why, people saying, why do you want to trade Trey Lance? No, I don't want to trade Trey Lance. What I want to do is I want to add Michael Mayer, and the Niners don't have a first round pick or a second round pick. So to me, having a lot of value tied up in your backup quarterback when you're trying to win the Super Bowl is probably not the way to go. So if they really do want to go with Brock and they're going to sign another quarterback of note, I'd be in favor of moving Trey, but only if I could get like a top 15 pick, because I want Michael Mayer. I think Michael Mayer is one of the best tight end prospects I've ever seen. I watched him play 7-8 times, and every game that he played, he was like a cross between George Kittle as a blocker and Rob Gronkowski as a receiver. So he's awesome. Now, there also is Bill Musgrave's nephew, Luke Musgrave from Oregon State. There's the Utah tight end, Dalton Kincaid, stud. There's the Iowa tight end, Sam Laporta, very solid player. Darnell Washington, I've just went on and on about. Darnell's a crazy athlete. I love Payne Durham from Purdue. I watched a lot of Big Ten football this year. Payne Durham made big catch after big catch. He's 6'5", he's 255. Zach Kuntz from Old Dominion is a monster. He's 6'8", he's 250 pounds. He runs great. He's a redshirt junior. I love Zach Kuntz. He wore number 80, so if he comes to the Niners, he will be switching numbers. But from Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania is a great hotbed for amateur sports. This guy went to Camp Hill High School in Camp Hill, Pennsylvania. He's 6'8", 251 pounds. Zach Kuntz. Yeah, I love Zach Kuntz. I really think highly of him. Will Mallory from Miami, 6'5", 245, really good receiver. Luke Schoonmaker from Michigan. Look at Michigan when Schoonmaker was on the field and how they ran the football, and then how they ran the football when he wasn't on the field. 6'6", 250, provides a lot of pop in the run game. Josh Wiley from Cincinnati, 6'6", 245, really like him. There's a lot of good tight ends in this draft. There really are a number of them. Christian Sims from Bowling Green. He's shorter. He's about 6'2", 240, but man, great player. I mean, really great player. So this is the year to go get that second tight end. If there was one area last year on the Niners, that was a little disappointing, is the Niners had a true number one tight end in George Kittle, but then like the rest of their tight ends, I think were more like third tight ends. And so, Croft, I mean, nothing against Croft, and I don't blame Croft that he did what he could against Hassan Reddick. But Croft, Dwelly, not really strong blockers. Werner, not really a reliable receiver. They don't really have that second tight end that they could put in a two tight end set and just say, cover these two guys. Good luck. So Michael Mayer would be awesome. Bomber T says Brock Bowers, the kid from Napa who plays for Georgia in 2024. Yeah, he is. He's special. We've got more people want to weigh in on their one player for next year. We got Darnell Washington. Oh, here we go. Rainier Lenore says Matt Ryan. Man, I think Matt Ryan is cooked, like done. And I'm tired of having quarterbacks on the roster that are there for any other reason than to play. If you can't play, you can't play for me. So no more film study, guys. No more he's a comfort for the coach. No. Give me ascending football players who can play. And if they get hurt, I'll plug in the third string guy. I don't want to have guys there for other reasons other than they can play football. Charles says Kincaid is a great receiving tight end, no doubt. Look at Utah's offense, when Kincaid wasn't out there. And he was the guy that the quarterback from Utah was looking for at all times, who I kind of like as well. I kind of like that quarterback from Utah. Robert Clarkston says Tom Brady. Is Tom Brady coming out of retirement? Bomber T says Matt Ryan can't take a hit anymore. Yeah, I'm not. I saw Matt Ryan a few times, and I did not like what I saw. Kieran says, thank you, Larry. Anybody who just comes out with a thank you, How do you not put that up there? All right, that's going to do it for us. Hey, good stuff today. We're about an hour away from our next live stream. Ryan Hensley is phenomenal. He really is. He is a Niner content creator. I've only streamed with him a couple times, but I really, really like him. And I think he does something. Now, I don't always agree with everything he says, but I think he does a really good job. And I want to talk. We're going to do a live stream at 2:00 right here on the Krueger Show channel entitled "Is John Lynch Setting Up a Trade of Trey Lance?" And I gotta hear Hensley's breakdown. Charles Fleming says the Utah quarterback was Cam Rising. Yeah, dude, I bet Utah like 10 times this year. I mean, Utah was a great bet. Cam Rising is a freaking competitor deluxe. Now, I don't know about the arm strength. I don't know about exactly what he is as a pro. He's actually coming back to college, even though he looks old. But Cam Rising is the real deal. I mean, anybody who follows the Utes will tell you that. Here's one. I got to look this guy up. Never heard of him. Jaheim Bell from FSU. All right. I'll look that one up. Jaheim Bell. Adata 84. What position does Jaheim Bell play? I'd love to know. I can look him up, but just tell me. Fork-tailed Devil P3BJ. Just rolls off the tongue. He says, Schoonmaker Krug. Yeah, from the big tight end from the Wolverines. He's a horse. He's an absolute horse. Oh, here's Hendricks with one of my guys. I love me Jamie Robinson. Jamie Robinson. In fact, I was texting back and forth with Jordan Elliott, who talked to him at Indy this week, and he said that Jamie Robinson's interview was the best interview he saw all week. Now, he hasn't interviewed everybody all week. Maybe I'll ask him after the event's over. Maybe he'll have a new name. But Jamie Robinson plays for keeps, man. And he was like one of 7 or 8 kids, and he was raised by a single mother, and he had kind of a rough upbringing. But this guy plays the game for keeps. He's another guy like a Jimmy Ward. He plays for real. I mean, there ain't no soft pedaling it around the middle of the field if Jamie Robinson's out there. He will knock your block off. And that's what I love about having Lynch as a general manager, because John Lynch he don't want no safeties that can't hit. He understands the position. He's keenly aware that separating guys from the football is a major part about being a great safety. Alpha 45. Have you heard of the defensive end from Nebraska? No, I'll have to look that up. A data 84 says Jaheim Bell is a transfer from South Carolina. Are you sure? Because Jamie Robinson also started at South Carolina. Did FSU have multiple South Carolina transfers? Charles Fleming says Jair Brown, the safety for Penn State. Yeah, I mean, the Niners met with Jair Brown this week. He's a freak. He's an absolute freak. I mean, we're talking about, when I say freak, I mean that in the I say freak in the best of terms. He's a freak athlete, but he also is very productive. MVP of the Rose Bowl. Alpha 45 just drops a D's nuts. All right. Well, there you go. On that note, that's probably going to do it for us. Thanks to everybody who stopped by. Thanks to all of you. Oh, by the way, let's do a where are we as far as total subs? Always do this at the end of the show. We're closing in on 15,000, but we've had, we are at 14,700, I believe. 14,000. It's just refreshing. So it looks like 14,700. So if you're in the chat right now, hit like and subscribe. If you hit like, it just helps more people find us. If you hit subscribe, you'll just get an alert every single time we go live. There you go. We got this one from Bomber T. Sac State. The kid, is it Mappa from Sac State, the linebacker defensive back? That's another guy who I think he would be a great Niner. Late invite to the Senior Bowl, super productive player. Alpha says, great show. Fish and Chips says, see you in 60 minutes. Robert Clarkson says, great show. Thanks to everybody. And once again, let me check our subs. Yes, we're over 14,000. 14,707 subs. We are days away from our 1-year anniversary. Help us get to 15,000 subs before our 1-year anniversary. So if you're in the chat and you've yet to sub, please subscribe. We would appreciate that greatly. And Bomber T says the running back for Sac State wasn't bad. I'll have to check him out. Fish and Chips says Teron Vincent. Is that the kid for the Buckeyes? I think he's pretty solid. Data says 15,000 in sight. There you go. Here it is, Marte Mapu from Sac State. Charles Fleming, thank you for that. Great show. Thank you, Robert Clarkston, for that one. Appreciate everybody. Have a great rest of your day. We'll see you in an hour with the great Hensley, who's going to join us, and then Grant, and then Vish. Should be a busy, action-packed football discussion day on the Krug Show. Have a good one.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you gon' get exactly what you asked for. Here for whatever you bring me, getting handled. I answer to no one, I don't need to hassle. Yeah.